Good morning, Gail. I just want to welcome you to Ministry with Coffee today. We're so glad that you joined us today.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to it.
Yes. So we know that you wrote a book called Unveiled Truth. And so this is our topic today. So I want to share with the audience what inspired you to write the book and kind of tell us a little bit about the background of the book. And so we'll just discuss the book today if you're good with that.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that opportunity. Let me first say that I love hearing people say that writing a book was on their list for their life. And I have to confess, no, that was not on my life list. But after 7 years in Kabul, Afghanistan, coming back was a jolt of reentry and a very fuzzy transition. And during that time, I began to think of all the stories and just the important events that happened during that time, having shared them verbally many times. And of course, people, often will say, "Oh, you should write a book." Well, I didn't take it that way, but I began to think, I don't want to forget these stories. I don't want to forget these times of new insights and learning about new cultures and people and so much about myself. And so I began to just write it and in my bathrobe in my little Missouri home because I didn't know what we were going to be doing next while we were waiting for God to reveal the next chapter of our life. And then when I was doing that, just kind of here and there, it wasn't like timed every day, sit in the chair, right? It was more like, oh, here's a part. But I began to get a framework. Like I somehow got like a list of topics that turned into topics. And I was getting to the near the end, and the school closed that I was writing about. So I was the principal of the International School of Kabul in Afghanistan from 2005 to 2011. And I left before things started getting really, really bad as the Taliban were ramping back up. Every year we say we got more modern, less secure. So when I left in December 2011, the school made it another couple years and then it closed. And so while I was writing it, it closed. And then I thought, it's like if it's not written down, it never happened.
Oh my goodness.
And it was almost 10 years of amazing people coming through the school and what it did for the lives of the students who had no education on the level of ISK because we were an American accredited college preparatory school. So these kids could take that American diploma and go anywhere in the world. And that was
Mhm.
such a gift because many of the families had returned to Afghanistan after moving away during the Russian years and the Civil War and all of that to help rebuild their country. So they're bringing their kids from New York and Toronto and Amsterdam who had never lived in Afghanistan, but their parents
Wow,
brought them,
okay.
often under very interesting pretenses, like, we're going to visit your grandparents. I mean, think about it. How do you sell to a kid? I'm going to move you to a place, no malls, no theaters, no parks. You won't be engaging with any of your peers except at school. I mean, it's a hard sell. And so a lot of these kids came, and an international school is their most special place because there are kids just like them, looking like Afghans, but growing up in Sacramento, California, who are like American or Canadian or European and Afghan. Now, where do you find that? Because, as one kid said one time so well, when I'm in America, I have to put my Afghan side to sleep. But when I'm at ISK, I can be fully Afghan and fully American because there are kids just like me here and they get it.
Oh, that's
So
great.
I know it's a really important understanding about third culture kids that look one way but have identity in a different culture. So I wrote the book with that, just kind of not really knowing what I was doing. I like to write. I don't burn to write. I'm not a person who has like shelves of journals. I write things for important events and then I hardly ever look at it again. I know I don't. As a counselor and a life coach, I certainly am embarrassed to say that because a lot of people use that as a good tool, but for me, it was kind of like I write it and then I'm done. So I did that and then didn't really know what to do with it. And so which is a whole other part of the story, is that after all my debriefing and counseling, which I knew I needed because my departure was rough, I not only left after those years and came back to the US, but I was fired.
Oh my
Just
goodness.
not how you want to end your cross-cultural overseas experience. But that left me with a lot of questions about myself, my worth, my abilities, my career. I'd been a career educator, and here anyway, it was a very interesting time. So when I was going through the debriefing with an organization that works with overseas people, one of them said to me, "Hey, have you ever thought about life coaching? I think you'd really enjoy it and be good at it." And I'm like, in my best Scarlett O'Hara of like, I'm like, I can't think about that today. I'll think about that tomorrow. But I was just so fuzzy with what happened and all of what are we doing? And my poor husband, who would still rather have been in Afghanistan, but had to leave because I had to leave. Um, anyway,
So
I didn't.
what made you guys go there to begin with? I mean, there
Mm,
had to be a reason why you guys
hmm
decided to pack up
yeah,
and leave the United States to go to Afghanistan. That's a big jump.
I know. That is the big
What
question.
what led that?
Well, and that's exactly where the book starts. We're on our 25th anniversary cruise we'd saved up for 3 years, and we're sitting there on our balcony, and my husband says, "Let's, thank God for the 25 years and our kids and all these wonderful opportunities we've had to serve him, and let's think and pray about the next 25 years." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, and he's like, so my husband's a pastor and been in seminary. So he's like, I've been in the business world for a while, but I feel like either I need to go back to the ministry full time or move overseas. I'm like,
Oh,
move overseas. Well, by this time, the church we were at in Missouri, north of Kansas City area, we had a focus on Afghan refugees in Pakistan, and had taken some teams to work with them. And a lot of workers were in Pakistan with all the refugees there that had, left during, especially during the Taliban and that kind of thing. But he had gone in 2001, in 2000, sorry, 2002, when they first came back into the country after 9/11. The international forces were in Afghanistan. So he went with our church on a team there, and he's got a very tender pastor's heart. And he was just captured by the devastation. And then he was set to go again in 2003, right when we are on this cruise in the summer of 2003. So I knew that was there, but I'm thinking, okay, that's a place to visit. That's that's no place to live. I mean, but he said, "Well, will you pray about it?" So what do you say? I'm like, "Of course." And I said, "But don't be telling anybody about this prayer because I don't want you getting all kinds of influence. I just need to hear from God about this." Because he said, "If it's for us, you need your call too. It can't just be me." I'm like, "You got that right." And so it's just a very God thing because I'm not really interested. My life is going great. I've got these kids that are doing great. I'm a counselor at a Christian school. I'm the missions, coordinator for the school. I mean, I'm in it. I've been taking kids to Bolivia and, Russia. But I don't need to go overseas as far as full time. So anyway, we get back from the cruise, and a few weeks later, this is where it really starts to get. I use the analogy in the book of like a big fishing net coming down from the ceiling and just catching me. I mean, I'm not suffocating, but I'm caught because I get back and start my counseling schedule, and the kids aren't back. My principal comes in, and he had gone on this great leadership thing in Colorado with Christian Schools International, and he says, "Hey, guess what? They're starting a Christian school in Afghanistan." And he's at our church, so he knows my husband's gone. And I look at him and say, "What? No, you can't have a Christian school in the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan." He goes, "Yep." And he leaves. And I remember sitting there in my empty office going, "Oh no, this could be bad."
this
Because
means God.
yeah, and what else would call an educator but a school? So I don't know what to do, but I just really have that feeling like something's happening. So I know the ACSI people. I had gone with them to work with the Russian public school teachers back in the early 90s when the wall fell. So I call someone I know there and I go, "Are you guys doing that?" And he goes, "No, it's not us. It's this." And he puts the link in. And all you have to do is click on the
Click
link.
it.
So I click on there, but it's one of those sites that like you have to put in a little information before you can, really get in there.
Mhm.
Sure
They want to get,
enough,
they're going to catch you with that net that you're talking about.
I know. And so the network of international Christian schools out of South Haven, Mississippi, was starting a little. They didn't really call it a school because that requires
Mhm.
registration with the government involved. This was a learning center
Mhm.
in Kabul, Afghanistan, for Afghan kids and worker kids, and I'm like, whoa. So then all of a sudden I get a call from the president of that saying, "Oh, we just came out of a prayer meeting today and we're asking God, who would he call to this new venture in Afghanistan?" I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. I just was interested. I know, but it just made it sound so God divine appointment thing." And he said, "We're sending over the people who will start the school, and if your husband's gonna, he should meet them." I'm thinking, not gonna meet them, it's a big city. So he goes on his trip. I open my laptop one day and he goes, "Hey, hon, guess who I'm having dinner with tonight?"
Oh
They
my
were
goodness.
sitting, but they were sitting beside me in the International Church at the service on Friday. So that those kind of things continue to happen in a very,
You mean
oh
those
no.
divine appointments that you can't say no to because you know
No,
it.
it's so clear. It's so clear. I mean, even if I wanted to excuse it away, how do you excuse those things away? And so then he said, my wise husband said, "Well, if you're really going to consider this, you need to see this place for yourself." So in 2004, I made my first trip there and I hated
Mm.
it. It's, I wanted to call the book No Place for a Woman because I'm telling you, there's nothing about that place that just goes, "Oh, wow, how wonderful." It's, it's just so male dominated. I mean, you see what's on the news. We'll just multiply that in a thousand ways and not the way, and even not the way it is now with Taliban. I call them 2.0, the second version of them. But anyway, so I went there and then I met the school is now in its second year. And they've got these 620 somethings who are doing everything from taking tuition, mowing the grass, teaching math, meeting with parents and all that. And as a school person, I see them and my heart's just kind of like, the kids need help. I mean, it's like, and they have us for dinner and they say, "Come help us." And I know on the van back from that dinner, I can feel it now. I felt like I was leaving kids behind without any parents or
Guidance.
help. And even though this is my little analogy, so a school's like a brick wall, and the teachers are the bricks. And you can have a wall with just bricks, but the mortar between the bricks is what stabilizes the wall, and that's what administration can do for teachers. And I thought, you know what? Here's something I can do. And I don't know, but it just seemed so clear. So I agreed to with Nix. I went through the training to be the school leader, and we started talking about going. And then the Bush White House, the George W. Bush White House, was beginning their USAID $20 billion package of aid to Afghanistan. And Laura, former teacher and librarian, said, "Well, you know what? If you want families to come and stay a long time to work, you've got to have a school." And she was right. So, part of the package was to have an American school so that kids could continue good educational levels and go on to college. And so that little bitty thing got approached to apply to be the American school. And there were others in they were applying, but they won the grant. And so we morphed from little KIA, Kabul International Academy, to ISK with the USAID money behind it. So now they had salaries and could recruit teachers and get books and all we needed to be a real school.
Wow,
And
look what
so in
God has done there.
2005, yeah,
You-
2005 it opened and I was the principal and then I had a boss, a director, and we just took family homes and turned them into staff dormitories, administration buildings, classroom buildings, and the on a street. And then we shut down the ends of the street and tried to rent every bit of property that we could on that street to keep meeting the needs of the school. We started the first year with 190 students, and by the time it closed, it was almost 400.
Oh my goodness, Gail, that's a lot. That's a lot of information. You really it seems like you guys, God was with you because look
He
at it.
was, but
That's how
the
you treat them.
story isn't, I mean, I would love to say, and I met people there who'd been working years to come to Afghanistan, and I would just keep my lips tightly closed because it was embarrassing to say I did feel called, but I felt called for this time, for this place, for these people. I'd never spent my time praying for Afghans. Some people, I have a brother who's a full-time worker, and he works with Uzbeks, and he has always been called to them, and he's worked with them in various countries and places around the world. That's not my story. My story is about a Christian woman who felt that God offered her, called her to an opportunity, and was I willing to step into it? Did I feel courageous and brave? No, I felt reluctant, and yet I felt sure
Mm.
that it was going to be the right thing to do. And so every time we came home, because the school would be, off at Christmas for 3 weeks and in the summer, so I was like a woman with two lives. But every time we came home, our church would want Pastor Mike to pray, and he'd give this great, wonderful sermon, and then they'd ask me to give an update. So then I came with the real cold information of, okay, this past winter, I wore 3 layers of clothes all day long because there's no central heat. And I have thyroid issues, and all I could think of sometimes was flannel sheets. I was like so cold. And
Let's
I,
stop because I think that that's real important for people to understand that even when God calls you, it's not perfect. There's trial and there's adjustments to be made. I call them the wilderness times where we don't always understand why did you call me to live
I
like
know.
this or
Yeah.
to be in this kind of setting. So let's talk about some of the areas that probably wasn't the best that you really had to pray and count on God for.
Well, number one was we left our 3 children behind. They were semi-launched. One had just gotten married a few months before we went. The other two were in and out of college. And I that was the hardest thing for me because I was in the same school with them and we were together all the time. I mean, I homeschooled a few years when my husband was in seminary, but other than that, I've worked at the schools where they were. So we were just in sync. And now they're all looking at me like, "What?" And they're not ready to be all the way on their own, but they also aren't going to go with us because they're in college, right? So God provided that some people from our church out of nowhere, not knowing my burning question about what am I doing? I can't just pack their suitcase and put them on the curb. But my husband's like, burn the bridges. We're going to Afghanistan. And I'm like, no. I mean, he loves Mike, it's not, he just was thinking that. He wasn't thinking about that. Some people from our church, the couple, at 2 different opportunities and something they said we've never experienced before, said, we feel like God told us to pay your house payment when you go to Afghanistan. So, what could my husband say to that? No, God didn't tell you that. So we kept our house, which gave our kids and me, and a place to come to. I mean, nothing is more ministering than sleeping in your own bed, making breakfast in your own kitchen after you've lived in a place like that, on a compound with all of your team. So that was it. Number one was our kids. And what God did in their lives in that time is glorious. They're now in their, early 40s, and they can tell you what it did for them in good ways and God honoring ways. And they didn't lose their faith and they all went. They all came at some point and visited us there so they could get a picture of where we were. So that was the big thing. Plus, you're popping out of your careers.
Mhm.
And I was in my 40s. I mean, I was moving up thing. I had master's degree. I just like, who does that? I mean, I'm still in my career path, but I'd never been a principal before. I'd never been in an international school, so there was a lot to learn. Another thing was just the fact that you're now in a place where I had been driving. I was a fully formed American woman. Hey, I'm a 70s girl. Hear me roar kind of thing. And now I'm going to a place where I can't drive. I can't go anywhere by myself. It's just, I mean, I have a very kind husband, and he's very used to just, kind of allowing me freedom to do that. And now he's having to go to the store for us. And I mean, it was way different in that thing. You start thinking weird things like, oh, I can't do that. I mean, things that you wouldn't ever say to yourself in the US or in a Western country. So there's that. And I'm living on a compound with my staff. I'm eating meals and watching movies with the people I'm their boss. Wow.
Oh, wow. So talk about what the blessings were that came from that, and then also leave our viewers with a last word of encouragement if they're called to do something to
Mm,
this extreme, because is an extreme to
yeah.
pack up your home and to move into a different country and to leave your family.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
an extreme. So let's just finish with the blessings that came from that, Gail, and then a word that you want to leave with the
Hmm.
makers on what if God is calling you to answer the
Hmm.
call.
Well, I think the biggest blessing is just in knowing you and God are are together in this. You've answered the call and you're obeying, and you're doing it not because you're so brave, but because it's right. And when we move in that with the Lord, then we know Him and knew. And I mean, I came to understand His care for me in such unique ways that never would have happened for me. And some of the ones I've already shared, but never feeling abandoned, even though I was miserable and sad at a lot of times. And there were times when I didn't feel good about where I was, and I wanted to go home. I said that often. But the joy and the blessing of being involved with what God is doing somewhere else is so satisfying. I did not hate it every day. I did not desire it as my long-term situation, but I certainly every day thought, what do you have today? So there's amazing blessing in that. And I think we should look at our life that way all the time. As far as to say to people, this is part of what the book came to form at near the end, is that at the end of each chapter I try to summarize my lessons, my life lessons. I mean, that's the subtitle of the book, Lessons Learned While Leading the International School of Kabul. And then hopefully ask some, reflective questions. Like some people use it in a book study, some people do it for their own reflection to try to get the gain from the pain. I mean, there's pain in obedience, but there's always gain. God is not like that. He's a loving Father. He's shaping us, and that Hebrews tells us that feels painful, but there's a reward for that. And so I feel like I gained a lot from that. I'm a different person than I was, and part of it came from the firing at the end, where I had to really reflect on a lot of what's inside of me and how it comes out, and do I want that to be a reflection of the God woman that I want to be.
Absolutely. Guys, goodness, what a story. What an incredible journey that you guys
Oh,
had.
thanks.
And I'm so glad you answered the call and said yes. I can't imagine the fruit that will come from that for years to come. This side of heaven, just you'll be able
Mm,
to see the fruit. I mean, you hadn't even seen it all yet. What has
no.
come from that with those lives that you changed by being there with the women and the young men that you were speaking into. What a blessing.
There's been a few glimpses, and it's definitely been something that really brings me such satisfaction, because I signed for 2 years and stayed for seven, but during those I won't regret it, and I don't think even with the changes in the country now, it was seed sowing, and God knows what to do with those, and so hopefully others will come along and water and do their part, but I'm happy to leave it in God's hands.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being on the program
Oh,
today. I just loved having you and I love sharing this story. I just think it's going to really speak to a lot of different people. I think we just have to be open to wherever God calls us. And
agreed.
and I love the way that he confirmed it over and over with you because I think there was just no denying that that was definitely God and where he wanted you to be. Hello, friends. I just want to take a moment and thank you for joining us today with Ministry with Coffee. We're so glad that you're here. And I want to ask that if this has moved you or encouraged you, the story that you just listened to today, that you would like our page and that you would share our page with your friends and your family. Together, if we work together, we can share the gospel of Jesus throughout the world at one cup, one story at a time. Thank you again for your support. We are so glad that you have chosen to minister and partner with us. Thank you again.